Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That is Jack. I am Conrad, and this is the 45 Euro 2021 Finals prediction.
Our last predictions of the tournament. Feels like
England,
it started.
Italy, two teams remaining, Wembley Stadium, London. Hard to imagine seeing Italy get dominated like they did against Spain. A bit of a COVID scare with them right now. Even though Mancini and all the players have been vaccinated, it is still kind of freaky that they've got 3 people that were in their camp, or maybe 4, I can't remember, some reporters shut it down. Kind of scary regardless. England's first final since 1966. All but one match played right here where the final will be held at Wembley Stadium in London. England have been more consistent. Italy have an extra day of rest. Both teams coming off extra time matches. Italy traveling just about. They had their first 3 were played in Rome, and then they've bounced around a little bit more. Italy have been at home except for their trip to Rome for the quarters. Italy changing their tactics to deal with a thoroughly dominant Spanish midfield. I think England have adapted in a more subtle way, and they've been winning in a kind of unremarkable but somehow pragmatic fashion thus far.
Yeah, what was the Euro semifinal not in England? The other one between
They were both there, yeah.
Okay, so yeah,
But
not
Italy's
much
back
trouble.
in Italy's back in Italy.
Why?
I don't know. They wanted to go back and train.
They wanted some actual.
They were in
cuisine.
Florence, I think.
They didn't want to be in London for their cuisine. They wanted to be in Italy. They're in Florence.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have gone back, but they did.
Yeah. Look, I think it's gonna be a great game in terms of trying to predict it. The actual quality, I may fall asleep. I think this is gonna be a boring match. I'd love to be surprised, but it's a final. It's Gareth Southgate, and it's Italy recognizing that they are outmatched for quality for, I'd argue, the first time this tournament. I think England have more quality than Belgium, up and down the roster. Squad, I should say, not roster. So I think it's going to be even more defensively minded for Italy than it was against England, or against Spain, I should say. So it's going to be a bit of a dull affair. I think the Wembley crowd is going to be anxious, more so than it'll be helpful, because there is 55 years of history here, and there are going to be nerves for the fans and for the players, because you saw it when they conceded first against Denmark. They had said, and then they recovered because they recovered against Denmark. I mean, and credit for recovering, but it was against Denmark. If Italy scored first, recovering against Italy is not as easy, especially with the fact that Delaney and Højbjerg were very good in the midfield for Denmark, but they're not the quality of Jorginho, of Verratti, Locatelli, Barella, especially, who's been tremendous this tournament. I honestly think it's going to be a great match, but we differ very significantly. For one of the first times this tournament, we've been in a lot of agreement.
You're running against what you predicted earlier when we were guests.
Yes. Yeah, we were guests on the You Tell Me Football podcast. Go check that out, their channel. We were on there. And I said that before the semifinal matches, and after watching that, I saw an Italy side who were comfortable off the ball, and I saw an England side who, at times, they went through periods of the match where they looked like they did not want to be on the ball. They wanted to be the side.
You have 2 teams, and they're just going to let the ball sit there for 78 minutes.
Exactly, and it's a case of England, if they wanted to, cannot break Italy down unless they have Jack Grealish on the field. So they need to play Jack Grealish, and I don't trust Southgate to use his frontal lobe and start Jack Grealish, because it's just going to be a remarkable matchup. I think that Italy have got a really good ability to break sides down on the counter. I think Rice and Phillips have been good this tournament, but there's a reason that they haven't won a trophy in their career. It's a pretty basic way of looking at the sport.
Well, Declan Rice plays for West Ham United. That's why he hasn't won a trophy in his career.
And why does he play for West Ham United?
Is he going to be there for much longer?
I don't know. I think that there is going to be a lot of nerves, especially in that midfield, and that midfield will be beaten if they try and do what they did last match. I
think Southgate's going to counter with speed. That's what he's done, right? They're going to, both teams are going to not want the ball. Like, they're going to actively try to give one another the ball. I don't see that actually happening, but there will come a point where Italy has the ball in the English half, and England will figure out a way to counter, and that speed will break down Bonucci and Chiellini. They're combined 70 years old. They're very, very good. Don't get me wrong. Without Spinazzola, they don't have that safety valve, and that makes a huge difference. And I think that's part of the reason. Granted, Spain's midfield is ridiculous, but But I think Spinazzola's loss is felt far greater than we even anticipated it would be. That's my theory.
Look,
at least.
Italy have walked this tournament with the exception of Spain. And the reason why they struggled against Spain was because they were matched in the midfield where Italy had been so dominant. Busquets, Koke, Pedri matched stride for stride with Barella, Jorginho, and Verratti. And that was why it was a level affair. And look, as much as you may say Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice on the rise, them in a midfield too with Mason Mount covering them is just not the same midfield trio that it is in Spain.
Right, but Italy's not going to be able to take advantage of that. They don't care. If you're telling me that they're going to sit back, then that midfield for England doesn't matter.
It does matter entirely. It matters in their ability to break down Italy.
I don't think they're going to worry about breaking it down. They're going to just purely outpace them. That's about it. They're going to have to. To the goal.
If you sit on the edge of your 18-yard line, where are you speeding to? You're speeding to the byline and going to lob one in? I mean, yeah, it's great to get one for Harry Kane, but I mean,
Maguire to get one out of that.
The only way that I've seen England
set pieces.
Only way I've seen England be creating is Raheem Sterling has the ball, starts driving in on a player, cuts it for an overlapping Luke Shaw run, who puts in a good ball into the box. So they create other chances.
But if you get Grealish in that lineup, I think it is different. Does he have the guts to do it, Southgate? If he does, you get a 2-1 result. If he doesn't, you get a 1-1. Penalties, England have no shot.
Yeah,
none.
It is a 50-50 at the end of the day in penalties.
But you said it earlier before the camera started rolling.
Yeah, it's 50-50, but I would.
But would you take Donnarumma?
I would take Donnarumma for Pickford.
Absolutely, every day.
100%. But it just depends on. It is at Wembley, which could make an impact. So it's like
more dark arts from Sterling.
Yeah, I mean, look, Italy are better than Denmark. They're better than Ukraine, and they are better than Germany. England have not faced a side as good as Italy. They've not faced a manager as good as Roberto Mancini. Lowe is a very good manager for Germany, but he doesn't have the talent that Mancini does with him as well. Southgate versus Mancini, one manager will be outclassed. Now, that's not all that it takes. It could come down to multiple other factors.
I think Southgate's not getting the credit he deserves for just adapting in subtle ways.
Not getting credit for beating a 95-year-old Germany team, beating Ukraine, and beating Denmark, all of which
He's taken a beating because of people criticizing him for starting Phillips and Rice in front of that back line.
And it was a mistake in that first half. They struggled in that first half. They could not win a duel against...
They didn't need to.
Who was the midfield duo for them? They struggled against Delaney and Højbjerg in a midfield two. They matched 2 for 2 in the midfield, and they were beaten.
I don't think Denmark get the credit. They're a much better side than people thought they were coming in. We liked them coming in.
Braithwaite played 120 minutes for them. They cannot get credit because they have Martin Braithwaite playing that long. There will be, I think, some very suspicious refereeing because it does feel like with the 6 minutes at a time, the no minutes at a time in the first half, the penalty was really dodgy. So there's always going to be this element that exists. But I just think that you look at that Italy side, they can break England down and they can do it on the counterattack because, I mean, Immobile, Chiesa, and Insigne is a very, very good front three. It's, I would argue, almost as good as England.
They have to want to use it.
And they will on the break.
It's the same argument that I'm making for England.
Yes. But England cannot, they don't have that. They don't have that. They don't have that same level of quality that Italy do
I think
down a side.
England are going to be better on the wings than Italy are.
Bukayo Saka has been good, but he's struggled against Denmark. Sterling has been good this tournament.
And you think he drops Saka for Sancho?
Here. If he starts Sancho, then I question his ability to think because Sancho is not the solution to your problem. Sancho it was very good against Ukraine, but he could do a good job against Italy. But I would much prefer Grealish. At the end of the day,
same here.
I think
for me to feel confident in that, I'd like to see Grealish in starting 11. But
Grealish, Sancho, Sterling, Rashford. I mean, you have so many options on the bench that he's just not turning to. Henderson not starting in the midfield. You have so many talented options, and yet the only side that you really have blown the doors off of is Ukraine, and that's because they're Ukraine off of the back of like dying against Sweden. So I just think that England have not shown a great ability to break sides down, and Italy are going to be their first big test, and it is probably the best time to have your first big test.
Spain was their first big test.
I'm saying for England. Is their first big test. And Italy, they faced Belgium. They've faced Spain. They've faced teams that are very comparable to England. They're inferior to England in a lot of ways.
I think
but where it
Belgium
matters,
hurt, and that did not help them.
Where it matters.
They're not as good as they're not of the quality of England.
To beat Italy, Pedri ran that game in the midfield for them. What midfielder is running this game for England? Is he going to be Mason Mount? He's good, but he's good. He's got good all round.
It's youth versus experience,
and I think that it's going to be a close one. It might be a little dull, but I think it's going to be. I think
2-1 England.
I have Italy edging it. So we are going to have one person right, one person wrong. So one of the first times we do love to agree a lot.
And we don't actually try to agree. We just tend to agree because generally we're both.
It's pretty long. I mean,
right
usually there's pretty like a lot of logical reasons. I think this is why I'm excited for this final. I haven't seen what the odds look like who's favored, but I have to imagine it's very even because you could go back and forth all day. This could be a 55-hour long video about how these sides have been building up to this moment, and I think that ultimately Italy are very good defensively, like very, very good defensively.
I just think there will be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it.
I see Italy conceding one, no more than one. And if
England have only conceded one, granted,
and I see them only conceding one more. I would be surprised if this had more than 4 goals combined.
Well, I think we forgot, maybe not forgot, but we were overthinking or hoping for more action in the semifinals. But they get tight, right? And this is going to be even tighter. This may go goalless and go to penalties. Who knows?
I don't think so. I think
I think they're tired. Both teams are very tired.
This being a home match for England is going to be a big deal, though. So that's the only reason why I would possibly be swayed from my preference of the Italy squad and Italy management over England.
Yeah, it goes to penalties. I'm terrified of this result, but it's not going to happen if it goes to penalties. Tell us what you think in the comments. Jack Conrad, this has been the 45. Please do subscribe, like, tell us what you think. Look for us on the Twitter at the 45. Take care now.